Fish Tips. I'm Phil. Today we're going to be meeting up with Latella, and he's a local expert in the industry for over 10 years, and he's going to show us how to catch some fresh bait. But before he does that, I'm just going to head across to the local bait store and I'm going to grab some prawns. Got some Hawkesbury River prawns, and we're going to meet up with Dominic at one of his favourite local fishing spots. Well, we've arrived at Dominic's favourite fishing spot, and as I was telling you before, Dominic is a seasoned professional. He's been fishing for over 30 years. He's been in the industry, highly respected for over 10. He's not only fished for that length of time, but he's in fact documented the tides, the phases of the moon, the rivers, the waterways, what sort of fish we're likely to catch all along the east coast of Australia. So let's go now and meet with Dominic. G'day Dominic.
How are you, Phil, mate?
Hey, this spot wasn't easy to find, I've got to tell you. How you going?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. It's a bit of a hidden location, but hopefully we'll get some whiting and bream, and maybe later on as the tide goes down a bit more we can gather some bait and see how we go.
Excellent, excellent. So do you want to tell us about some of the gear you got? Is this something specialised for this area, or is this just a favourite rig of yours?
Oh, it's one of my favourite rigs, yeah, but I try to fish light in the river. I'm only using 6-pound line, 6-pound leader, very light sinker, and just a very small hook, a size 2.
Beautiful.
A small size 2 hook there.
Yep. And what sort of bait? Are we going to be using the Hawkesbury River prawns that I got from
Yeah, well, we'll start off with the Hawkesbury Rivers while the tide's up.
Yep.
And then as it drops down, we'll go down, we'll get some crabs and worms, hopefully.
Excellent.
And we'll have to go for some bream and whiting.
So what's the tide doing at the moment? Just
at the moment it's running out.
Yep.
Looks like it's got about 2 hours to go, maybe.
Right. Yep. And what about the water? It looks a little bit like it's a bit dirty. We've had a bit of rain down here.
It's a bit stained, yeah, from the rain we've had.
So do you think that that's likely to affect, or?
It might a little bit.
Yep.
But it doesn't look too bad. So if all goes well, we should get a few.
Well, that's the name of the game. Fishing's hit and miss. So how about we put some lines in the water and we see how we go?
Yeah, no worries.
Beautiful.
What's that old stick you got there, Phil?
Oh mate, I've got to tell you, this is probably older than both of us put together. It's an old Jarvis Walker. It's a Black Queen. It's a favourite of mine. Very light.
It's a nice little rod.
It's a beautiful rod. I've got to tell you, it's got really good action. Very whippy, as you can tell.
It's just what you need, mate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's I'm just using, similar to yourself, I'm just using a light, small reel, 200 series with a light line and a light sinker, and hopefully it'll produce us some good fish.
There's nothing wrong with the old gear, that's for sure. Old versus the new, eh?
That's the idea of the game.
We'll see how she goes against the new fandangled nano graphite rods they're making today.
Well, I've got to tell you, this rod's older than me. In fact, my father used to fish with a rod very similar to this, and this is really one of my favourites.
They're good old rods, mate. They can handle a very good bashing, that's for sure.
Well,
compared to the new age things.
Well, we're going to see how it goes. We might say old against new, eh?
Yeah.
Old school, young school. See how we go.
Okay, today we're just using a little 1000 size reel. It is a VVAX reel. I've only put very light line on it, 6-pound line, 9-ball bearing reel, a full metal body, very strong little smooth reel, just perfect for river fishing, for your whiting, bream, flathead, flounder, estuary perch. Holds a good 120 metres of line, which is enough, even for small school jewfish. And that's all you really need, little 1,000 up to maybe a 3,000 for the river.
And as you can see, I'm using a bit of an antique here. It's actually a Shimano FX 2000, and this has got rear drag. Unlike Dom's, he's got the drag on the top. I've got the drag on the bottom, which is just a personal favourite of mine. I feel I've got a bit more control over the fish while I can adjust the drag while I'm actually reeling in, me being right-handed. And also this style of reel also gives you the opportunity of being able to take the line and you can flip the bail arm across with this knob here, and you're ready to roll. So you virtually can use this one-handed, completely one-handed. Don't need to be taking the bail arm across. You can do it with one finger. You can set your line and push that button across and you're ready to go. It is a very old reel, nothing fancy, no 9 ball bearings on this guy, 4:1 gear ratio, holds a good 100 yards, a 10 pound, we're talking 100 yards here, we're not talking metres, 170 yards of 6 pound line, so plenty of line capacity, a beautiful little old school reel attached to an even older school Jarvis Walker Black Queen rod.
Okay, I'll just show you some rigs and knots that I normally use when I'm down here along the river. Like I said, the tide's running out at the moment. It's running a little bit hard, so I'm just going to fish in close and very light. I'm only using a number 1, 2 size sinker. Once again, like I said, 6 pound line to a swivel. Now I'm going to tie my trace on. For my trace, I use a blood knot, but what I tend to do when the line's very light is I double the line first. It makes the knot a little bit stronger, I believe. Okay, I go through the swivel, 3 or 4 twists of the line, 2, 3, 4, in through this hole here, and then back in through that hole, just in one motion. Wet the line, pull on it tightly, and just pull it up tight, make sure it's all nice and snug. Just trim off the excess, nice and close, so it doesn't impede with your rig at all. Anywhere up to a metre long trace, the longer the better, I find. Again, the same thing again, just go through the hook eye, doubling over the line. Three or 4 twists, 1, 2, 3, 4, through the hole and through the hole. Pull it tight. And trim it down again. And we're ready to go. How you going there, Phil?
Yeah, good mate, good, just getting ready.
I see you got some beads there.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to decide. I know that we use the red ones during the day and the green ones at night, but this water's pretty dirty. I mean, what's your opinion?
Yeah, mate, I reckon it's a great idea. I should have done the same.
So do you think we should use the red ones?
Yeah, red ones during the day and green ones during the night, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll put a couple of these on, and for anybody that's a little bit unsure as to what these things do, they're just a little bit of an attractant. The fish see these things. The red ones are meant to represent fish eggs when I use them in the fresh waters, when I'm fishing for trout and stuff like that. And the green ones, of course, they glow in the dark. So you reckon just definitely 2 of them should be right for here, Dom?
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
Okay. Well, I got the local Hawkesbury River prawns, Dom. What do you think of these here? We're at the Georges. Do you think there's any truth to the theory that you should be using bait that's indigenous to the area?
No, mate. I reckon the Hawkesbury rivers will do just fine here.
Yep.
They're the same species as the river prawn you get here, so they'll work just as good.
Okay. Okay.
Due to the fact live or dead, they're a fresh prawn. They look great, so it's the next best thing to having a live prawn, and if not, just as good.
Now, you're going to use a whole prawn, is that right?
Sure am, Phil, yeah.
Yep, so you're targeting bream, I understand.
Yeah.
And do you shell your prawns?
I do. If there's a lot of pickers around, I might tend to leave them whole.
Yep.
But 9 times out of 10, I do peel the prawn, yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to peel them as well, but I'm actually going to target some whiting today, because you said that there's whiting in this area. So I'm only going to use a portion of the prawn. I'm actually using a long shank, a small long shank hook.
Right.
And you're just using a normal
short shank.
Size 2, is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
It's actually a fine worm hook. It's a very fine hook, so you can use worm or prawn on it.
Okay. Okay.
It's very easy for piercing the fish's mouth. It's very, very thin.
Okay. And I understand that you're actually going to show us a little bit later on how to get some local worms out of here.
Sure will, yep. We'll go down maybe another hour or so, the tide drop down a little bit more, and I'll show you how to get some local squirt worms, which you really cannot beat as a river bait.
Okay, great, fantastic. So would you like to show us how you'd peel your prawn then for targeting a bream?
Just take the head off, shell,
and the prawn just comes straight out. Yep.
And then I'll start from the tail. And just try and keep the hook as centre as I can to the bait, and just thread it up the hook like a worm.
Yep.
All the way up, and even just a little bit over the eye of the hook as well, so the hook is totally concealed. I know a lot of people like to keep the barb of the hook exposed for easier hooking up rate on fish, but I'd rather keep it totally hidden, especially with a nice soft bait like a prawn. As soon as the fish goes and puts that in its mouth, that hook's going to break through the prawn and hook the fish straight away.
Well, that's right. You see, I'm of the other opinion. I actually, when I put my bait on, I'll show you. I break mine in half.
Yeah.
And what I actually like to do is, I'm sort of different to you. What I do here is I thread it in a similar way, but I sort of go through the back and all the way through, and then just through like that. So it is completely concealed, and of course, sometimes what I actually do is just kind of pull it out so that when he does grab it, that hook's exposed a little, and as soon as he takes the bait, he's got the hook as well.
Excellent.
And because I'm using fluorocarbon as a leader, which is completely invisible in the water, fish have got no chance of seeing it. I've got my little beads on there, which is the attractant to the bait.
Beautiful.
And the hook being exposed, I think that's a winning formula. But we're only going to know when we cast in and see who gets the first fish.
Let's give it a go and see how it goes.
All right, let's give it a cast. Well, just before we get these lines in the water, Dom, just realised we haven't actually burleyed up. What's your thoughts on burleying up here?
Well, mate, normally I would, but I just don't want to attract too many small fish in the beginning.
Yep.
We'll give it a go for 20 minutes or so. If we're not getting absolutely nothing, then we might try the burley.
Okay.
I just don't like to start using burley straight off the mark, not to bring in too many small fish.
Okay. So in relation to your casting, are you going to sort of lob it right out in the middle? Because that's what my intentions are. I'm going to get it right out there with the intention of picking up some whiting. So
yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Well, yeah, for you, Phil, that'd be great, because there's a sandbar out in the middle from what I know.
Yep.
In here close where the bream like to lurk, there's a bit more structure and obviously more snags, but I'm only going to fish in very close, 2 to 3 metres from the bank. Like I said, yeah, there's a bit more structure. The bream tend to hang around the edges a little bit more.
Right.
And then later on, we might try for some whiting as well when we get the worms.
Okay. All right. So, do you want to show us how you'd normally sort of put a line 2 to 3 metres off the shore?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I just open my bail arm, one finger on the line, and just a little flick in close. That's plenty. Let out a little bit of line, make sure it gets to the bottom. Set your drag. It's only very light line. Alright, that's reached the bottom now, and that's it. We wait for the bite.
Okay. Alright, well, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing in relation to casting. Just get my sinker up close to the top of the rod. Flick the bail arm across, and like Dominic did, just hold that.
I'm just about to hook up.
Fish on already.
There we go, mate. Looks like the Hawkesbury River prawns are working. There's only a little bream. It only took, as you saw,
that was barely in the water.
1 or 2 minutes.
Haven't even had an opportunity to cast yet, and we've already got a fish on.
It's just a little one, but
well, you know, the thing that impresses me about these little ones, Dom, is that means that the water is the waterway is alive. In order for the small ones to be there, the big ones have got to be there to mate. So it tells me that this is a healthy waterway.
Yeah, well, as you can see, there's some little mullet and that down there already. We've got the brim. There's little bait fish swimming around, so it's all looking pretty good, and hopefully there'll be some bigger ones Around. The legal length for brim is 25 centimetres, so that's well short. He's only about a 10 centimetre brim, so I'm not even going to bother measuring it. So we'll get him back to the water ASAP, just so we can not have any damage to the fish at all and let him fight another day.
Okay. Well, I'm amazed. You know, he not even had an opportunity to cast. He's already got one on the board. So I've got to get this line out there. I'm going to, as I said, similar cast method. Take the bail arm open, one finger on the line. Normally I'd cast from my right, but because I've got Dom on my right, I don't want to risk getting a hook in his ear, so just a little cast over the left. Let some line out, make sure that sinker hits the bottom.
I haven't had my ears pierced yet, Phil, so...
Well, definitely don't want to be the one to do that to you. So, well, I got a fish on, Dom.
Excellent, mate. I knew there'd be more around. Where there's one, there's always more.
Well, this spot you brought us to is obviously alive with fish, which is really impressive, because the look of the waterway, the water's really dirty. You wouldn't think there'd be much of anything in here. If you hadn't have recommended this spot personally, I don't think I would have even given it a go. It's another small brim, and doesn't look like I've hooked him. Yes, I have. I have actually hooked him legitimately. It's just that those beads have actually got themselves caught up around.
I'm on again as well.
Those fins, and you're on again as well.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he's only another small one.
Well, he's a little fella, as you can see, like the great Rex Hunt used to do. Give him a kiss and say goodbye.
I'm a bit worried now. They're getting smaller, not bigger.
They're getting smaller. This is. Imagine if we'd have actually gone to the trouble of throwing some burley in the water. Heavens.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I lost my total bait there. Dom was lucky enough. He managed to keep his bait from that first fish. Because I only used half the prawn. One fish, one bait gone, or half a bait gone. So we'll bait up again. And that's 2 to Dominic and 1 to me, although I don't really know if we should count that second one. It was barely 3 inches long. Alright, so I'm just going to show you how to do this cast again. As you can see there, the bail arm is opened up. The line is on the end of the one finger that's free. Got the rod there, you're gripping the reel around those fingers and hands. So you've got a good grip of the rod and the reel. Flick it right out. And once the bait hits the water, the technique is to let out a little bit of slack so that that bait will sink to the bottom as quickly as possible. And once, of course, the bait does get down to the bottom, we then wind up that slack, that extra slack we let out, put some tension on the line so that we can, of course, feel whenever the fish tries to take that bait. I've also got a bit of a personal thing where I like to point my rod down and in the direction of the line. That way I've got maximum strike even before the fish puts a nibble on the line. I don't know if you agree with that, Dom, or you like to keep your rod
Sounds
up?
Good to me.
Sounds good, yep.
Yep. So let go at about 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Wind up the slack after you've let it sink to the bottom. And yeah, like you said, because we've got that run in the water and the lines are travelling down river, it is best to face your line, face the rod tip in the same direction, and that way you don't have no bow.
Yes, correct.
Your line's nice and straight, direct to the fish.
Yep. Now, are you going to be able to cut?
I'd talk about the reaction at the end of the tip rolling.
Okay. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to film the fish biting. It was so quick and quite light. He's only a small fella. But not only will you feel the fish bite through your fingertips, but if you're using light gear like Dom and I are using at the moment, you'll actually see that rod tip. It'll flick around quite a bit.
De-hooked. He's
de-hooked himself. And I hooked this guy so lightly in the lip, because as I said, he only tapped it once. But as soon as I got him onto the ground, onto the shore, he actually spat the hook. So I didn't even need to bother to unhook that fella. All right, bring us mum and dad.
Great work, Phil.
That makes us about even, I think, doesn't it? Or you still want up?
We'll call it even.
We'll call it even, all right.
As you can see, I'm just starting to get some very small bites. Now I'll wait for the fish to load up on the rod, take a little bit of weight before I set the hook. I don't like to strike when it's pecking at the bait like this because he's either maybe not that hungry or a little bit shy. He's still nibbling away there. Sometimes when you do cast out wide and you do have that bigger ball sinker on, or bean sinker, a lot of people do tend to get confused from the bump of the line travelling down the river, and they think it's actually a bite. But when you're standing here fishing and you have your finger on the line, you can, and a graphite rod especially, you can feel the sharpness of the bite. Doesn't matter how small the fish is. So just be patient. You will feel the difference between the bumping of the line as it's travelling down the river compared to when a fish is biting. So it pays to have your finger on the line, or holding the rod in this case when they're constantly biting.
And Dom's got a fish on now.
I just missed one that wasn't too bad actually before that. I struck on it too early. We'll just show you how to remove the hook. And it's always best to grab the fish from the belly, get a firm grip around his gill. Don't squeeze him too tight because you might kill him. Just gently remove the hook the same way it came in, as simple as that. You might want to hold a wet rag in your hand or something, give you a little bit more grip. But that was basically it. Have a look where the hook is, don't strain on it, don't rip, tear, just slowly go back out the same way the hook came in and you'll easily release the fish.
Now you can notice on the tip of the rod there that fish is taking a bite, and you'll notice it. There he is. I'll give him one more go and then we'll just take up a little bit of slack. And there you go. So we've got the fish on. Whoop, there he is. Very close to the shore. I'm just going to show you my method of taking the fish off. Dom takes his fish from underneath. A couple of different reasons why he would do that is I prefer to take mine from above. You can notice he's got up here on his dorsal a lot of spikes, so you have to be really, really careful, especially with the bigger fellas. But what I like to do is, as I'm bringing the fish into the palm of my hand, I actually push those down and get a good solid grip on the fish. Now down here he's got a couple of spikes as well, but they're nowhere near as deadly as the ones on the top, and also here on the anal fin. So you do have to be really careful, and then of course, as Dominic said, it's just a matter of sliding the hook back through the way it came and releasing the barb, and then he's right to let go. It's not a method I'd recommend for everybody, because if you did do it wrong you can get spiked and it can be quite a painful experience, but that's just my preferred method. And there he goes, another healthy bream back into the Georges River.
Okay, we're just down here on the sand. As you can see here, there's some old bricks that have been left here, which is a perfect little hiding place for some crabs. We're also going to try for some worms with the pump. We'll try and get some crabs first, just lifting up these bricks and place them back where they were. Slowly turn them over. There's one there, I'll let this one go, he's only little, but that's what we're after. Just little black crabs like that. Put him back to grow up. You've got to be pretty quick after. Give it a bit of a wash. Now they're a top little bait for your bigger bream, especially when there's a lot of little ones around like there is today. This will stop the little ones from taking the bait and hopefully wait for the bigger ones to come along. Okay, we're going to try and get some squirt worms. To get the squirt worms, you wait for low tide. I'd rather show you when the tide was a bit lower, but we'll give it a go now, see if we can get some. Excellent bait for whiting. And what you do is you just push the pump into the sand a couple of centimetres, don't go all the way in. Give it a good suck back like so, and then just squirt it back out onto the ground like that. I'll go into the water a little bit. There's a few holes here, let's see if we can get some. It's going to be a bit difficult, I think. When you're picking up these worms, pick them up by their head, otherwise you might snap them. These are a little bit small, but they'll give you an idea of what we're after. There your squirt worm. Excellent bait for whiting, or any other species of fish in the river for that matter. They're a little bit fragile, so you be very careful when applying them onto the hook. But half an hour or so, and you can of pumping worms, and you can have enough for half the day or the whole day, even depending on how many you'll use. Okay, we'll show you how to thread on these squirt worms. The crab's broken up a little bit, but that's why I was using the fine worm hook. It's a very fine hook. There's a little piece there. You just thread it up the hook like that very carefully. Once again, in the thicker end of the worm, just slowly thread the bait up like that until you've covered the hook. And on these worms, I don't tend to leave a bit of hook dangling because they tend to break. I thread it all onto the hook like that and just cover the hook totally. Now we'll give it a cast out right out to the middle, see if we can catch ourselves a whiting. I'll put a little bit larger sinker on. Right back. Arms out, and release it about, say, 10 o'clock. There you go. Got a bit of line out. It's not very deep out there, so you don't have to let out much line. Wind up the slack. Give it a few minutes, and hopefully, well, there it goes now. And I'm on already. It's only a small fish again. Hopefully it's a whiting. We can show you different species.
Deal with the snag.
Poor Phil's got the dreaded snag.
I've got the dreaded snag. I thought I had something.
As you could see with the squirt worm though, it only took a few seconds. And we were straight on. Yeah, it's only a little bream.
Wow, look at the size of that dog. The worm was almost as big as the fish.
Almost.
It's good to see though.
Yeah, well, it goes to show it's the river's very healthy. river. We'll show you how to bait on the crab. And with the crabs it might seem a bit cruel. You can put them in the freezer if you like, or I break off their nippers first so they don't bite you. And I just insert the hook in the back, say maybe the third leg up, and just curl it around the back like that, and just have a little bit of the tip of the hook coming out like so. Some people might even crack the front of the crab, release a little bit of juices as well, which you can do, just a little bit like that, and the fish can smell it a lot easier. Now with the crab I just like to keep it in close once again to the brim. It's a bit more of a waiting game with the crab. Like I said, the little ones won't eat it, so we'll just wait for the bigger one to come along.
Oh, got it. Oh, man. Gotta say.
That was a good fish too.
Oh, yeah. Well, as you can see, we didn't get anything big enough to take home, so we couldn't show you the methods of gutting and cleaning and filleting. But we had a good fun day nonetheless. On the next episode, we're going to do some saltwater fishing. So, from Fish Tips, this is Phill Cale saying see you later.
Dominic, Latella, see you next time.